and welcome to another episode of Technology in the Arts. My name is Brian Kelly.
And I'm John Lemesny.
Thank you for joining us. John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Brian. How are you?
Doing great, thanks. What you been up to?
There's a couple things I want to talk about. It is September. We're very excited about September, and we started classes at Rider University, which is a new, for me, we have a new class in the Master of Arts in Organizational Leadership, which is the program that I graduated from, and it is media and technology for organizations. And we just started getting posts coming back from new students who I met last Tuesday. I'll see them again tomorrow night. And I'm very excited about the posts that are coming in. And we are using WordPress in order to do this work, and I'm really excited about it. And there is a certain power that we are able to exchange with each other about the way that we can use WordPress to communicate, and the fact that all these students had no idea what WordPress was such a beautiful moment in that first class, because I felt like I was really allowing them to begin to taste a real passion that I have for certain kinds of technologies. Princeton Public Library also, I have a couple classes that are going on this semester at Princeton Public Library, and those classes are free to the public. If you are interested in those classes, you can subscribe to lemesny.com. Whenever I have a class, I usually post it there. And we're talking about things like Evernote. We had a class on Evernote last week, and we had a packed house, about 20 people, and we talked to them about the beauty of using that tool in order to capture pages, capture photos, capture voice, do optical character recognition. It was beautiful. I'm also teaching at Princeton Adult School. If you are interested in learning with me for graphic design, or learning how to use something like WordPress in depth, or related topics, the kinds of topics that I talk about all the time, go to princetonadultschool.org and sign up for classes. These are not free. These are very low-priced classes, though, between $15 and $25. And finally, I wanted to tell you a story today. I went to Rossmore, which is an adult community, and they have a beautiful group of people who get together to work on computers and talk about technology. I was able to give them a presentation about the Chromebook, and I brought my Chromebook with me and sat down at 10 o'clock when I was about to start my presentation, and realized that they did not have internet access. And they normally do. But they did not have internet access today. So it was either, call off the presentation, or essentially, go by memory and discuss what it is I love about the Chromebook. And I said, let's talk about the Chromebook. And I started my conversation by saying, the one thing that you really need in order to make this device a truly powerful device is internet access, and we don't have that today. So you're going to have to use your imagination in order to see, what the power of this is. And I asked them questions like, who here is a video editor, or who here uses Photoshop in order to edit their photos, or who here is a programmer, or who here is a etc. And nobody raised their hand. Everybody is a typical computer user. They use email, they use YouTube, they use all the things that you would expect to use on your typical computer interface. And as a result, I was able to, I think, very convincingly show them that the Chromebook would be a perfect $250 device to replace their main desktop machine. And, they said, well, what about Microsoft Office? And I said, well, there's this great thing called Google Drive. And you're able to write documents, and you're able to export to Word documents, and you're able to make presentations, and you're able to work on Excel spreadsheets with formulas. And I asked them to sort of give me, like, their hardest problem or their favorite application, and I gave them a lot of cloud-based examples. And it was just a fantastic time. The fact that the internet was down was sort of a beautiful thing after a moment, because I was able to keep referring to that as sort of a joke, like, we don't have internet access, or else I'd be able to show you, my entire music collection, or we don't have internet access, or else I'd be able to show you every photo I've ever taken in the last 10 years. It was a really fun, really great presentation. So that was Rossmore. But anyway, there's a lot of stuff going on. If you're interested in coming and learning with me, there are both free options at Princeton Public Library, and there are for-pay options through Rider University if you're interested in credit, or Princeton Adult School if you are interested in simply learning in a multi-week constructed way. What's going on with you, Brian?
Nothing much. I just wanted to mention, it was something I wanted to talk about last week, but I took it out because we had so much going on. But I just want to plug one of my favorite indie artists. Dent May is a songwriter, musician from Oxford, Mississippi that I discovered on Sirius XM.
Any relation to Harvey Dent?
No.
Okay.
I discovered him a few years ago, and actually at the time his debut album, I guess, was it was Dent May and his Magnificent Ukulele or something like that. It was mostly ukulele music, but it was fun. It was catchy. It was quirky. But there was a bonus track called Eastover Wives that they played on one of the Sirius XM, like the kind of emerging artist channels, and it was like this kind of Casio-fied, lo-fi, kind of bossa nova lounge music meets Beach Boys thing. And
so like Bill Murray, basically, in the 70s.
I loved it. Yeah, but it's with an indie tinge.
Oh.
And I loved it, and I've been keeping up with him, and everything he's put out I absolutely adore. And he has a new album out called Warm Blanket, and he actually recorded it in a mansion that's supposedly haunted in St. Augustine, Florida. So I'm going to check that out. It's Warm Blanket. I'll put links to it in the show notes, and links to his website and SoundCloud pages so you can listen to some samples. But I really love his music, and I like to actually, they don't even play him on XPN that often. But one night I was we have a radio on in the kitchen like that has XPN on almost all the time, and I was in the kitchen working late one night, and they have this like indie rock show. I think it's on like late Friday nights, and all of a sudden I'm like sitting there, and the song's like a third of the way through, and I'm like, oh wow, XPN's playing Dent May, and I tweeted it. And the guy who hosts the show, he's like, yeah, damn right, or something like that. So I guess he's a fan too. But I'd like to hear more on XPN. The other thing is, we keep on talking about these things that we really can't talk about. But this past week,
yeah, I'm pretty sure we are a target now of the NSA.
Yeah, well, no, I mean things that we can't talk about them because they're not finalized, or they're things that we just, those type of things. I mean, you had your projects going on.
Yeah, they're still going on.
Yeah, and I have the cover of Yoko Ono's Silver Horse that I played accordion on that nothing has been announced yet. That my friend Christian Beach recorded. So anyway. I have to just be careful how I say this, but I had an opportunity, or an opportunity is within my grasp that would be the opportunity of a lifetime for me. and I think the first step went extremely well, and I'm hoping I get one more chance to kind of seal the deal on this professional opportunity that um, I have this chance to attain. So I'll just put it that way, but it'd be amazing if I wound up at this place. I'll just say
You
that.
know, when we do this, we really ought to consider just like letting go and like explaining the whole situation and throw caution to the wind. But I don't think that we're that kind of podcast.
Right. And and I don't want to jinx myself if I say it publicly, but I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful. I thought it went well.
I
And
believe in you, Brian. I believe in you.
meanwhile, my current situation, I have clients driving me up a wall today. I was working for 2 hours in a Wawa parking lot in North Jersey today.
Oh, that sounds like a joy.
Yeah, it's great. Laptop's running on low battery, and you're connected to the internet via the iPhone.
Have you ever run down your car battery using a laptop and a 12-volt AC/DC adapter
No, I've never
in the
plugged
middle of a storm that has taken out the East Coast?
No, I've never run my laptop on.
Yeah, I did that once. That was fun.
Yeah, well, I knew my laptop wasn't going, and we didn't have our router anyway, so I I didn't need my laptop to do anything, so I just, as long as my phone was charged, I was charging my phone in the car, but we were only without power for I don't know, just a little over 24 hours. I think it was like 27 hours. So, yeah, but that's all about. Yeah, that's all about.
Can you say anything about the visit that you made today that I'm aware of?
That was really stupid too. First of all, I couldn't. I couldn't find the place. It was in.
Isn't there a big red X all over the land?
No,
Like,
it was in the middle of no. Okay, so I was asked to attend a tour that
you're
the.
gonna have to bleep this out later. You
Yeah,
understand?
I was asked to attend a tour that was being done by a congressman and some EPA officials in North Jersey.
EPA. What's the EPA?
The Environmental Protection Agency.
Oh, why were they involved?
Because they were EPA Superfund sites.
Oh, what's a Superfund site?
They're in need of cleanup from contamination.
What kind of contamination?
Groundwater.
Oh.
And
Sounds dangerous. Where you like
TCEs and PCEs, but don't even ask me to pronounce what the chemicals are.
Okay.
But, so anyway, I think they were supposed to meet at this one place, and it was in the middle of nowhere on this wooded road near a lake. And the address that was provided, there was nothing there. And then I'm trying to drive around to find where this place might be, and I'm like coming up on all these U.S. Army installations. At one point, I turned around in a driveway, a gated off, driveway, and the sign outside was like U.S. Army railgun testing facility, and I'm like, I'm gonna get arrested by Homeland Security because I have no idea where I am, and I look like an idiot. But and then at the same time, one of the other clients I'm working for had like this emergency. We had been given approval to put up a website for them, and we were asked to take it down by the corporate end because it turned out the person who gave us approval did not have the authority to do so. So it was a crazy day. I wound up having I left. I drove by one building that may have been the place I was supposed to go, but I didn't see anybody there. And maybe they left by then. But I had to do this other thing anyway. I drove about 10 minutes back where I was. When I got off the highway, there was a mall. So I went there, parked, and I took down the site. Then a colleague of mine got the phone number of somebody who was on the tour, and they were giving me like the next address of the tour. So I wound up following it and catching up to it for the last 2 stops. But it was totally worthless. Like the reason why I was asked to go had nothing to do with what this tour was. It was such a waste of time today. But okay. Anyway, so it's a long day. I'm tired, and so it is going to be a mess. This podcast will be a mess. Just to warn you.
Okay.
But that's all I have today. I didn't take any pictures. There was really nothing to see unless you wanted to see a series of water treatment facilities that all look the same.
Well, it would have been nice.
Yeah. All right. So, John, what do you want to talk about tonight?
So there's 2 topics I want to talk about. I want to talk about PGP because we had talked recently about the idea of the NSA and a certain loss of our freedoms as Americans, and in particular, the ability for the NSA to very easily come in, intercept our emails, intercept our web history, and be able to see exactly what it is that we're looking at and make judgments based on that. And I don't think that that's right. I just personally don't. I don't necessarily have anything to hide, but I don't necessarily like having to hide my activity and having it interpreted. So we are entering really a very scary time, and one of the prophets, I think, of this oncoming loss of privacy is Leo Laporte, who runs a podcast network in California, and I feel like is endangered by his speaking out about the NSA. But I think it's also incredibly important that he does. He reminds us of our freedoms, and you and I pay attention to people like him for a different reason, because he is in pursuit of the ways in which we share technology and share the arts, but he also is very interested in the way in which we protect our freedoms, because his freedoms are threatened by this change, and our freedoms are threatened by this change. So one of the ways that we can combat this is by implementing security features like PGP. PGP is pretty good privacy, and you can implement it on email, for example, with a traditional email client like Thunderbird, by either installing an application that allows you to easily share your PGP keys. Keys are essentially strings of letters and numbers that allow you to encrypt your content, and you share your public version of your key, and you hold on to your private version of your key. And because of that combination of those 2 keys, in which you hold on to one and you share one, people who implement PGP on their end are able to have a completely encrypted channel between them and you. This is a case where you would take it upon yourself to implement this security feature. And it's not especially successful because most people, when they hear this description of the way in which you can encrypt your email, say, I can't do that. I can't even get my clock to stop blinking on my VCR. How can I implement PGP? Alternatively, though, if you and I are both using Gmail, for example, we can both turn on TLS encryption on in our settings, and then the emails that come from me and go to you and come from you and go to me are encrypted in transit. It doesn't mean that they're completely secure, because it's very possible that the NSA is grabbing that content that travels and possibly at some time in the future interpreting or breaking that encryption. And that's true really of any encrypted content. However, that doesn't mean that we should not enforce our rights as private citizens to be able to have private conversations. And we've already seen in news items about the NSA and the way that they comment on funny conversations between people, that they are abusing their powers. And as a result, we have to strengthen our protection against those abuses. That this is completely my feeling. I'm not speaking for Brian, and I'm certainly not speaking for any other entity which I represent, such as those that I mentioned earlier in the podcast. But I think that we deserve privacy. I think that we deserve to have freedom. And we are migrating from a time in which privacy and freedom were protected to a time in which privacy and freedom are endangered. And that's very sad, but it doesn't mean that it is a given. It just means that we need to learn new things in order to continue to protect our privacy. We must, because we are moving towards essentially a surveillance state, if we are not already there. That is debatable. But we are moving towards a surveillance state, and most surveillance states do not return to a state of privacy after the fact.
Right. And, when you mentioned the surveillance state, it just brought to mind, the movie Enemy of the State. What was that, from 1999, I believe?
There are several movies that herald this change.
And that was, all about how, the government can basically, snoop on anybody. And
the Prison Project is incredibly scary.
Yeah,
it allows the government to essentially capture and interpret as they wish any plain text transfer of data.
But I mean, it's not supposed to work that way. But they're not following, the protocols that were set up for that. I mean, they're going way beyond, what they are legally entitled to do, which is still wrong in a lot of cases. But I mean, the thing with going through, love letters, going snooping around old flames and exes and crushes, and it's really unimaginable that. It's not unimaginable, I guess. I guess I always did imagine it happening as a paranoid person by nature, but I mean, it's not right. It is amazingly not right.
Well, the
the
paranoia that you have is going to serve you well in the next 10 to 15 years. We are just on the verge of an incredibly different way of thinking, a different way of living than we do enjoy right now.
All right. Yeah, you are correct, and I kind of accept to an extent what the government has to do, but what they're doing is just it's immoral. It's wrong.
I agree.
What they're doing, I know they have a job to do. They also have to, try to listen in on things to for security reasons. But the more and more you hear about this, it's basically become legalized hacking, by the government. They have this technology, and they have these rules that they're supposed to follow, but it's almost like they're pushing it based on some kind of hacker code or something, like, oh well, I got this much information, let me see what else I can break and what else I can get into, and now it's out of control. It's just out of control.
And in information sources where there is a resistance, like Google is especially resistant to sharing this data, they just capture it downstream, and they just hold on to it until they have the ability to decrypt it. And it's a really scary time.
It is.
So the other thing that I want to talk about is I wanted to extend my conversation about the Chromebook, because there were a few beautiful moments today where I felt like I was able to explain why the Chromebook is such a great investment for $250. I bought both of mine used, and I bought them for $100 a piece. And what's beautiful is I feel completely confident that I could lose them easily. I could hand it over to somebody else and either have them use it legitimately without ever seeing my data, or use it illegitimately and try to crack into my account. And because I have a really good password, it would be some work for them to get into my account and be able to see anything. So I compared this with a MacBook Pro, where you might also have it encrypted, but because the hard drive on this device is so small, it's essentially 16 to 32 gigabytes for the Chromebook, you get into the habit of not saving things there. You save things in the cloud, where it's also encrypted and encapsulated to some degree. Whereas if you get my hard drive, you can get things that I've downloaded, but nothing else, unless you have my password. And you don't have my password. So the best password that I have is going to take you some time to crack into, because it's not a password, it's a passphrase. And it's going to take some time. Now, if I am silly and provide a way for you to capture my password in the clear, then that's problematic. But for the most part, I don't do that. And most of my traffic is encrypted. My traffic to WordPress is encrypted. My traffic to Google is encrypted. And I use two-factor authentication. In the event you are not familiar with two-factor authentication, what it is you turn it on in services that provide it, like Google. And what it does is it provides one factor in which you know something and one factor in which you own something or are something. Fingerprint authentication is an example of two-factor authentication. If you had to type in a password and then press your thumbnail, your thumbprint to a sensor. In my particular case, what happens is, I'll give you an example. I had to print something out, and I don't have a printer here because I don't believe in printing. Every once in a while, I need to print something so that I can sign it and send it to somebody so that they have some proof that I truly believe in this thing. It's kind of silly, really. But I had to do it. I had to print something out and send it. So I went to Staples, and the document that I needed to print was in Google Drive. And I sat down at the computer in the Staples and logged in, and the first thing it presented me with was, what is the code that Google sent you to prove that you are who you say you are? And because I had bad connectivity where I was at the time, they were not able to send me the code. I didn't get the code until later. And what it proved to me was that even myself, knowing all of my secrets, I was not able to get into my account at that time because the connectivity was not there for me to do that. But even if the connectivity was there, I would still have to have my phone in my hand in order to receive a text message in which I would get my content in order to plug that into this machine in order to prove that I was who I said I was. So two-factor authentication is another fantastic way to protect your privacy and protect your content against prying eyes. If I was to hand my Chromebook over to somebody without having a password in place, they might very well, if I did not have two-factor authentication, for example, they might very well open up my laptop, have full access to my content, and I would deserve losing my content if somebody got that access. But because I have this two-factor authentication, they would be prompted for a password that they would never have because I have the phone in my pocket. So not only did they need to know what I have in my mind, they need to be able to see what I have in my pocket. It's such a beautiful combination of protections against somebody getting access to my content. Another note that I brought up in my talk today was that at the recent Black Hat security conference, there were something like 72 operating systems that were tested, that were penetration tested, and every one except for Chrome OS was penetrated. Chrome OS stood against it.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool. Cool stuff.
I remember it was probably a couple of months ago, or it was before we brought back the podcast, but I think it was on Gizmodo. But somebody wrote this post that talking about, oh, I was shocked because I was working in Chrome and realized that my passwords are out in the open when I'm logged in.
Firefox.
And it's like, what if I give that? And I'm like, why are you giving your computer to somebody? I mean, when you're logged in, I mean, it's like you're supposed to be a tech writer. That's like the worst security move you could ever make is handing your computer to somebody. And while you're logged in, it's like, oh, well, I shouldn't have to do that. And people were like killing them. It's like, dude, that's like idiotic. So it was just funny that why would you knock Google for the way they handle that? I mean, you're the one who's handing your computer to somebody.
Exactly right.
Anything else, John?
No. What do you have to share in focus?
Just a couple of quick things. One of which was something I wanted to talk about last week, and I took it out at the last minute because we had so much going on. But it is. This was something I was on Gizmodo a while back, but I actually it was actually from Andreu Carulla.
Andreu the Giant?
Andreu. No.
Oh.
Sorry. See, it's late, and my eyes are I don't know if you've noticed, my eyelids are like falling down.
I did notice. I was pretty sure you were asleep for my segment.
I know because my contacts.
I didn't take it personally very much.
I was trying to open my eyes to make you see that I was awake, but
a little bit.
My eyelids
Brian,
are so heavy at this point.
if you want to go to sleep, I understand.
No. So anyway, Andreu Carulla, I guess Andreu Carulla Studio posted this machine that they are making for Rocambolesc, which is the ice cream shop offshoot of let's see if I get this right, El Cellar de Can Roca in Spain, which is the reigning best restaurant in the world according to Restaurant Magazine. It won the award this year. But Carulla's studio makes this hot ice cream maker, which he actually calls the Oxymoron maker because it's hot ice cream. And this is actually the Oxymoron Maker 2. That's an improved system. But let me go to let's go to screen share.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yes. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. and I'm waiting for my window to close out here so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm getting a spinning rainbow. There we go. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, so that's the thumbnail of a
Excuse me.
video, but that's the finished product. It's basically like a sandwich slash waffle maker. Uh, but that's actually the Rocambolesc logo there, and
Mm.
it's made exclusively for this ice cream shop. But what's interesting though is that they put this kind of neat video together, which shows you see all the parts to it here. Can you see that?
Yep.
So they show all the parts, and they put this video where all the parts kind of move by themselves into place until the final machine is done, and then they show, uh, the. So basically, you have a brioche with the ice cream in the middle and toppings, assorted toppings. Hold on, let me get rid of the music here. But let me go to where. So see, everything like kind of slides in, and but let me. Okay, so there's like what the finished product looks like, and so the ice cream is just barely runny in the middle. It doesn't melt completely. It's just and it warms the pastry around it. So between the art of cooking and the art of the video itself, which is pretty interesting, I thought it was something to share on the podcast. So let me get rid of this now. All right, and now I'm back. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was a podcast that I recently discovered via a tweet. The 99% podcast, 99% Invisible podcast, which is actually, it started out as a project of KALW Public Radio and the American Institute of Architecture in San Francisco. However, it's now a fully funded podcast. It's funded through fans via Kickstarter and through podcast underwriters. There's also a 4-minute, 30-second version that airs as a segment of NPR's morning edition in some markets, but the podcasts are generally 15 to 20 minutes in length, and they're generally about design, but not just graphic design. It's about architecture, network and system design, format. Recent shows have talked about hidden public staircases in neighborhoods of Los Angeles and San Francisco, large-scale networks of pneumatic tube delivery systems, some of which are still active. And the one I shared with John, or at least brought to John's attention, the broadcast clock that guides
Beautiful, beautiful design.
all of NPR programming. It lays out every segment, everything that needs to fall into place during an NPR program. And as the podcast explains, that hardly ever happens. But they make it work so that it seems like it is. Segments do run short. Somebody breaks out of something too fast, and they have to extend the music buffer. That they were planning to play. They might have been only planning 15 seconds, but now they have to run it for like 45 seconds. So it's done in a very fun, engaging, and informative way, and it's hosted by Roman Mars, and it really gets you thinking about form and structure of things, and it really made me think about all the discussions we had about tightening up technology in the arts, and I think we've done a little bit this year, but
I think we've done a great deal. I'm very happy with the format that we have now.
yeah, But I mean, looking at that clock, it's like, we could even tighten it up even more and really make this, like an NPR program. So that'd be and I think we had elements of that in our first run because when we were doing the podcast, and we could still do it in the podcast version because I could edit things in, but we're trying to make this as low effort as possible since we don't have the time that we used to have back then. But and I'm not sure we really had the time back then, but
no, you made the time, but
yeah,
undeservedly.
But we had a calendar segment, we had we had an interview segment, and we had a structure, but we didn't pay attention to a clock, and I think if we pay attention, and he mentions that in that episode where podcasting, there's no need for the clock, but he's like, I think the podcast would suffer if it went any longer, but then again, here he is, he makes a 4.5-minute version of this like generally 15 to 20-minute podcast for NPR, and it's and he's talking about the challenges in finding that 4.5-minute cut.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be at the McCarter Theater for a live presentation of This American Life with Ira Glass.
Right.
And it was really amazing to hear him talk about how that show comes together. And he didn't mention anything like this, because it's so much about editing. But it was still interesting to hear how those segments came about. And he talked about the idea that, very much like we have talked about, you stumble upon something that is especially interesting and begin to dive into that. One of his early segments that he did, not for This American Life, but for Morning Edition, was a story on cleaning ducks or geese in an oil spill, and the idea that one of the workers talked about how they used Dawn, the soap, right, and how it did such a great job with removing the grease and oil from the birds, and he sort of laughed and he was like, really, Dawn, and it was like this little moment that he realized was the crux of the entire interview. And really ran with it, and that was the thing that made the impression on listeners. So the idea that using something like that in conjunction with the construct that you shared is, and I love NPR. I love what they do.
All right, and there's actually, if you go to the 99percentinvisible.org about page, there's actually a quote from Ira Glass. 99% Invisible is completely wonderful and entertaining and beautifully produced. And then there's another quote from Allison Arieff, probably saying that wrong, design columnist for the New York Times. And her quote is, "Mars is the Ira Glass of design." So it's really interesting the way, and like they had this the story about the pneumatic tubes. They had these two people talking about their fascination with it, starting from their trips as a child with their mothers to the bank, and watching the tube go up, at the the drive-through window, and the drive-up window, and they both end like they kind of go in and out of each other's stories, somewhat similar, and then they both end with, "It was like magic," and like they both said that, so they had it like run at the same time. It's just a very fun way of listening to these stories and listening and gaining this information about these really interesting topics. There's actually one I listened to today on my way up to my wild goose chase up in North Jersey. Was about the architect's code and how there's I don't know if you know this, but there's a architect's code where they are supposed to design within respect to human rights. There's language in there about human rights, and there are people wondering if architects should be involved in the design of prisons, of certain prisons, especially like supermax facilities where inmates are rarely given opportunities to be in the company of other inmates, and that in some respects, like Amnesty International and some groups consider it torture, and they wonder, can architects really design prisons if that is in the code? And there's one person, one of the members of the American Institute of Architects that wants to include prison-specific language in the architect's code. They want that.
Well, it's very interesting. I moved from a single home to an apartment, and very often that feels a little bit dehumanizing. There is not a lot of opportunity for you to interact with people in your living space when you are that separate. It's weird. I almost feel like I had more interactions with people in my neighborhood in a single home neighborhood than I ever do in my apartment complex. And design could fix that.
Right. Right. So it's really interesting. So like I said, the website is 99percentinvisible.org, and that's 99 and then %invisible spelled out .org, and I'll put a link in the show notes. And yeah, it really gets you thinking about different kinds of design. Like, you think of design as something you can see, but some of this is a little more intangible in terms of design. So it's really, really interesting podcast, and it's starting to take up a lot of my time. Also, I'm listening to, trying to get really caught up on the Nerdist podcast lately. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Have you ever listened to Tom and Mike Eat Snacks?
No, I haven't gotten to that one yet. I'll get to it.
Please, Brian, such a great podcast. Like, it is the model of success.
Okay.
It really is.
I'm so disappointed because I still have my Decoder Ring theater. I still have Decoder Ring theater, but the Mustache Rangers are doing a lot of live shows, and they haven't done many podcasts lately. I really miss the Mustache Rangers. So I hope I still hope they're going to continue doing podcasts, but they haven't done one in quite some time. I'm
sure they will.
So I missed that. So, but because they're taking some time off, and they're usually short anyway, but I'm trying to get caught up. The Nerdist podcast, though, Chris really needs to trim those. I mean, I love the conversations. They're fascinating and they're interesting.
They should make a Vine version.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, there was one where.
By the way, I mean, still reeling from your Vine edit of this podcast.
Well, I did this. You saw the second one?
No, you did another?
Yeah, I put it on the Facebook page, but you know what? I think because it's so short, there was no thumbnail. It just showed up as a link.
I don't remember you sharing it. That's a shame. I would really like to see it.
Well, I guess we can't.
Well, you can show the video.
Yeah, I could share it. Nobody else would hear it, but I could share it with you. Hold on. I might as well do it now. Hold on. Let's see. Podcast listeners, this dead air is brought to you by Technology in the Arts.
IKEA.
Oh, this is the first time I've ever actually gone to our YouTube channel while we were on the air, and I can see live now.
It's very meta.
Yeah, it's like I'm looking at myself, looking back at
You
myself.
are not sharing your screen, by the way.
I know.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not ready to yet.
Oh, okay. Brian, we are like the oldest married couple ever.
Wait, what?
We're like the oldest married couple ever.
Hold on. I'm gonna try to get my mic down so you can hear me knock my mouse onto the floor. Okay,
Post-production.
that was graceful.
Quite.
And now my head is like, okay, screen share. Okay. Let's turn this up. I got my microphone right against.
Have you ever like Googled yourself? And they were like, no. And I was like, you ought to try it. It's fun.
I told you that was going to be the Vine Cup.
Oh man, that's perfect. Oh, that's good.
I didn't sense one today, but I'll have to when I go to edit the podcast, maybe I'll find one.
I don't know. Maybe on the rant on the NSA.
Probably.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's really good. You are a masterful Vine editor.
Yeah. And now I just have to figure out how to get them onto Vine. I guess I could always just shoot the video on my phone, but that would look stupid.
I don't know.
But people do it.
It's more about the format than it is about the.
Yeah. People do that. It's stupid. I'm on Vine. I'm like, did somebody really just create a Vine video from something that was on TV? I'm like,
of course. Those are not the successful ones. The successful ones are the ones that are edited for that purpose. But
yeah, and then get kicked off the service. Yeah. Free Lillian Powers.
Free Lillian Powers.
So, all right. So, anything else tonight?
Let's see. Do we have anything else to talk about?
I'm done. And look, it's an hour. We actually we want it to be actually half hour or 45 minutes, but an hour is okay. That's better than we have been doing.
Yeah, not horrible. No, I'm good. We're good.
Okay. So go. I know you're gonna go back and go to the YouTube channel and watch that 6-second cut over and over again.
I will. Do you want me to do the closeout for the first time ever?
Well, you can't. If you want. I think that might jinx this.
Well,
I'm kidding. Okay.
This concludes this episode of Technology in the Arts. Thank you for watching, and remember to visit us at technologyinthearts.com, our Facebook page, which is lovely, the Google Plus page, on Twitter at @tech_arts, our YouTube channel where you can watch this incredible video. If you do a search on your favorite podcatcher, you can certainly do a search on Technology in the Arts and you'll find us. And really, just do a search on Brian or me and you'll find us for sure. We hope you'll join us again when we return next week for Technology in the Arts. This is John Lemazny.
And this is Brian Kelly. Take care.